piece of shit, this bastard, took the lives of 17 people. You have a right to defend him. You have no right to demean the people who lost somebody. None. If I had done 1/10 of what you did during this entire proceeding, I would have either been disbarred, brought up on charges, lost my license. But no, you did what you had to do because you were defending the indefensible. You've all had your 15 minutes of fame. Every one of you. It's done. You're done. I never want to hear your name. I never want to see your face ever again. Our family sat in silence, like Fred just said. We had to endure listening to the testimony over and over again. 17 medical examiners testified about what your bullets did to our children's bodies. And you sat there with the same freaking expression you have now. None. Cold, no emotion, no remorse. What type of animal are you? We avoided all social media. We avoided saying anything to the press. We sat here and endured. We were afraid, as Fred said, of a mistrial because every time anything came up, the first thing you heard is mistrial, mistrial, mistrial. Mr. Weeks, how do you live with yourself for making such an indecent, insensitive, and unprofessional statement like you did yesterday? No one had to endure what your attorneys had to endure. I'm sorry, but I don't believe any of your attorneys or our loved ones were murdered by the bastard your office is representing. If I had done half of what you did, I would have been held in contempt of court because no judge would allow that. And for that, I credit the judge because she knew by doing that, she could have a mistrial immediately. I admire her jurisprudence. I admire the way she controlled this courtroom in spite of everything you people did. Now I want to tell you why I'm here. On February 13th, 2018, I was home in bed with the flu. My son Scott called me to see how I was doing. Said, not so well. He said, don't worry, I'll speak to you tomorrow. That never happened. But let me tell you more about February 14th. February 14th is also our daughter Melissa's birthday. Do you now know people don't want to call her on her birthday because they don't know what to say to her? They don't know whether to say happy birthday or I'm sorry. 2 days later, we were sitting in my mother-in-law's home in Palm Beach Gardens, February 16th. We were sitting with a funeral director. That's my birthday. My birthday memory is sitting at a table planning my son's funeral because of you. Know how we got down here? We live in New York. I was watching TV, CNN. I was sick. They report a mass shooting in a city, town, school in Florida. Parkland, Florida. What do I know about Parkland, Florida? Scott was teaching. What do I know? I called my wife. I said, Linda, what's the name of the school that Scott teaches at? And she said, I don't know, something with 3 names. We found out it was Marjory Stoneman Douglas. We heard on the news that a geography teacher was shot. Couldn't get a plane down here. There were no commercial flights down. We had to charter our own jet to fly us down here and sit in the Marriott, the command center, for hours, not knowing what happened to our son. We sat there with all these people, some of them crying, some of them scared, not knowing what the hell had happened to their loved ones. You talk about the victims. Yes, Scott was a victim. There were 16 other victims who were killed. There were 17 other victims who were shot. There are thousands of people in Parkland and all over the world, okay, who were affected by what happened here. Scott was a camp counselor. For 28 years, he was a camp counselor. When Scott was murdered, we went to the arrange his funeral, and the rabbi said to us, "How many people do you expect here today?" We said, "Well, we're not from Florida. I don't know, maybe 100?" There were 1,000 people in the room. But not only that, the rabbi said he's been getting calls for us to live stream his funeral. 500,000 people watched that funeral. So don't tell me your life is worth more than his. Ever. Let me tell you about Scott a little bit. See on my sleeve? Which sleeve is it? Just Run Faster. Okay? Scott was the cross-country coach at Stoneman Douglas. After one meet, his students were very, very upset that they lost the meet by a few points or minutes. I don't know how they calculate that anymore. I don't really care anymore. And he looked at his, they all came to him, all upset. "What do we do, coach? What do we do?" He didn't say, "Well, you were ready to this, you would do that." He just said, looked at them square in the face, said, "Just run faster." That's the phrase used by all of the MSD cross-country teams. Now, just run faster. That's how he treated his students. That's how he treated his team. He was honest with his team when he got the job at Marjory Stoneman. He said, "I know nothing about cross-country coaching, but if you teach me about cross-country coaching, I'll teach you about life." And he did. And know what he did? 4 or 5 days after the shooting, there was a memorial concert at one of the facilities here in the city. We sat there, someone pointed us out, and a nice Irish grandmother with the thickest brogue accent I've ever heard in my entire life. She needed to come with a translator, that's how thick it was. Tapped my wife on the shoulder and said, "I love your son, but I never met him." "Okay, I'll bite." She said he gave her her granddaughter an assignment. Call somebody who you don't know that well, from another country, who grew up in another country, and find out all about that country and what they lived through. She called her grandmother. They stayed on the phone for hours. The grandmother said, "Up until that point, I spoke to my granddaughter maybe twice a year. Now it's twice a week." You destroyed that. You animal destroyed that. You took my son away and a teacher away that loved his children. Someone you never met. You never had anything to do with. That's what you did. You're a bastard. You're a freaking animal. One more little story. I apologize, Your Honor. Okay. Scott volunteered to go to South Africa. He spent 2 months in South Africa, teaching students in South Africa. He came back from South Africa, just like this. His mother said to him, "Gosh, the airline lost your luggage," because that's what a mother would think. She said, Scott went, "No, Mom, that was the hand. Mom, when I was in South Africa, those children used to beg to get into the classroom." He said, "Here in New York, they pray for snow days. In South Africa, they don't have shoes. In New York, they look to see who has the best Nikes. I left all my stuff." That's what you destroyed. That is what you killed. That's the spirit that you don't have and never had. With that blank freaking stare on your face. Okay, you should only rot in hell. You fired 139 rounds of ammunition on that day. 139. You could have stopped at any freaking time. After the first freaking bullet, you could say, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" But you didn't. You continued to fire. And after the first floor, you said, "What the hell am I doing?" No, you had to go to the second floor. You had to go to the third floor. You had to walk past Jamie Guttenberg's body like she was a piece of trash on the floor. That's what you did. You show no remorse. You have no redeeming values. You're a coward. You're a freaking coward. You dressed up to blend in with the people you terrified that day. So don't tell me you had no planning abilities. You planned the whole thing out very, very well. The fact that I have to share my world with you is disgusting. The fact that I have to breathe the same air you breathe is reprehensible. I can't wait till that ends. Your sentencing today does not end the book. This chapter is done. But what we're missing is the epilogue. And for me, I look forward to reading that epilogue. What will happen to you in jail? You'll be passed around like an inanimate object. Your protection will be paid for by your commissary and probably with your body. You'll be someone's bitch, and you deserve it. Passed around from group to group until you get tired of it. You will be a commodity, traded like bubblegum, cigarettes, drugs, or candy. And one last point. Well, maybe not last point. My 70th birthday is February 2024. My hope, my prayer for my birthday present is to get word that you are dead. That the justice system was done in jail. That the prisoners that you and inmates that you have to associate with executed the judgment that this court can't. And I hope that it's the most painful judgment ever. Hope that when your final death comes, you have the same fear, the same agony as the 16 people you killed and my son. Hope that your death is slow and agonizing, because it won't be like a state execution. Prison justice is a bitch. When your fellow inmates execute the death penalty that you deserve, they will do so in such a cold, calculated, heinous, painful manner that you'll be wishing that the state of Florida had executed you in the compassionate way they must by law. Finally, I have one request, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I just want to say one more thing. In spite of you, in spite of that cold stare, in spite of that ice water bullshit that runs through your veins, in the fact that you have no remorse, no feelings for anything or anybody, we will survive. These 17 families and all the victims of your heinous crime will survive. We will go on, we will make the best of our lives, and we will deal with the daily grief, pain, and anger that we feel every day. I have to learn to live with the pain you caused to my entire family. You are the worst kind of animal. Contrary to the defense, one of the mitigating factors were you are a human being. Trust me, you are not. You are the lowest form of pond scum, and I apologize to pond scum for equating you with them. You are a spineless and soulless monster. My son Scott was a human being. He still is. Something you will never be and never were. He has a soul, he was kind, he has a character, and he cared for his fellow human beings, something you never did. Now one last request, Your Honor. I apologize. I would like to make a formal request to you, or to whoever it has to be on the record, to the Public Defender's Office. I'm requesting that under the Freedom of Information Act, that the Public Defender's Office make available to me within 30 days, including but not limited to the following documents: each invoice to experts, each billing statement for work done, each and every invoice for disbursements incurred for the representation of the shooter, the amount paid to each public defender, and the compensation to any persons who were compensated for representing the shooter. This day has been long coming. Didn't know how it'd feel right now. Don't feel any better because he's still breathing. The day he stops breathing, I will feel better. Thank you.